I had people tell me they were afraid to come out to protest or come to the garden or just to be involved in perfectly legal things because they were aware that the cops were in some way monitoring us. So if people know that their cell phones are being, monitored and bugged, they may be scared to be, to exercise their rights and to speak up and to be that voice that we need right now. And that it has a chilling effect. It's a dangerous chilling effect. After 9/11, after the attacks of 9/11, we saw, this reactionary state in the United States trying to, snuff out any terrorism or crime, and the American people were in a state of fear and panic and wanting, blood, basically, wanting vengeance. And so we allowed all kinds of things. We allowed the Patriot Act to pass. We allowed, warrantless wiretapping. And since that, all these toys have come up. I mentioned in the program earlier today the Federal 1033 program, which is where this military-style equipment is coming from the federal government funding to local police departments. They're giving them old military-style equipment and military training. I mean, you can look on Facebook, you can look on the news every day and see an example of the police state. You can see people being attacked, being murdered in the streets, oftentimes caught on camera, and people who have committed no crime. So I think that these are not just isolated events. This isn't just something that's happened in Houston, although obviously our focus is Houston. There's 46 police departments around the country that we know of that have them. There's 19 federal agencies. There's 6 different airports using them. There's, it's just, the list goes on and on about the ways that these devices are being used. Our goal tonight was basically to educate people of Houston about the use of cell site simulators, also known as StingRays, which is the brand name of this tool. They've been used by the Houston Police Department since at least 2007. We know that they upgraded them in 2012, and basically what this tool does is it simulates a cell phone tower, so it tricks your phone into thinking it's a cell tower and sends all of your information to the device so police can go around indiscriminately gathering that data. And this can be your location, the people you're calling, the time of the call, and in some of the versions of the StingRays can actually gather the contents of your text and phone calls and things like that, probably images you have on your phone. And there's a number of issues with this. For one, there's no warrants required. There's some troublesome issues with the contracts that the company, Harris Corps, makes the police department sign and what they can and can't say about it. It's also, as I said, indiscriminately being done, so more surveillance, and it's just, in general, one of a number of issues related to surveillance in the city. StingRays are a clear violation of your Fourth Amendment, no search and seizure. These devices can be used, as I said, indiscriminately. They can go door to door and just gather information, and even if they're looking for you specifically, everyone around you is going to get their information gathered too, and there's no limits on how that can be, how long that can be held, what it can be used for, etc. And we were watching some scenarios earlier about how not only the cell site simulators, but how all the technology connects. And I think that's what the big picture is trying to see that it's not just the StingRays that are violating our Fourth Amendment and violating the Constitution. They're actually part of a larger system, which is, pretty much just not even just violating our rights, it's eroding them and actively working against those rights. If you're just an average Joe and you're not a drug dealer, you're not even a protester, reporter, anybody that should be surveyed, if you live in the neighborhood or even, on the street of somebody who is being pursued by these devices, then your information could be cataloged in there. So then that could contain everybody you called that day, how long you talked to them, all the places you went. And if you, over a period of time, if this information is gathered, you could start to create a profile of somebody's life, what they do every day, where they go, who they talk to. And as I said, it's connected to a larger apparatus of surveillance equipment that includes drone surveillance, automatic license plate readers, facial recognition, audio device recorders that can be implanted in streetlight poles. So when you put all that together, you've got a situation that basically from the moment you leave your house, and even within your house with these things and with Xbox Live and all those type of things, you're being watched, you're being listened to, you're being monitored. As soon as you step out of the house, there's a camera that's connected to a CCTV station. As soon as you get in the car, there's an automatic license plate reader that's tagged you there. So it's creeping into our lives on a daily basis, and we need to figure out at what point, are we going to say we value privacy and freedom more than security and, gadgets and things like that, entertainment. My name is Derrick Broze. I'm founder of the Houston Freethinkers. I'm a freelance journalist, so I've been just following this stuff for a couple years now. And in 2013, June 2013 is when Edward Snowden started leaking documents, and some of them were connected to the StingRay program, so that was another thing that sort of got my attention. I'd been following surveillance for a while. I think that the surveillance state around this city and around the nation and really around the world is increasing daily, and a lot of people are accepting it. The focus of this, the brunt of this, is going to be in lower income communities who are already, bothered by the police more than others. If you're living in a rich upscale neighborhood, most likely the police aren't going to be targeting you with the StingRay, but there's always a possibility that if there is some suspected crime that you could still be gathered up in it. And I'd say also, to those who think that just because you're not being affected by something means that you shouldn't care about it, I just think that's a weak argument that you should look at yourself. If you don't care enough about your brother or your sister to be compassionate with those who are being affected then how can you expect others to care whenever there's an issue that affects you? We're all in this together ultimately, so I think that it's going to take those of us who are being affected by it. Now, I personally feel that I could be affected by it because we know through some leaked information that the Houston Freethinkers were the target of surveillance in 2012 by HPD. They may have been using those StingRays. We don't know. They've had them since 2007. Until that information can get out there, we're basically operating in the blind, So as an activist, as a journalist, as somebody who's out there, I am affected by this, and I know that others are as well, and I just hope that people are willing to start doing something about it. Activists, active people who are speaking out in the United States are more and more, their actions are being criminalized, they're being monitored, they're being surveyed. So it's creating this sort of, this silencing effect where people are, I've had this happen specifically. Like I said, when we were monitored in 2012, I had people tell me they were afraid to come out to protest or come to the garden or just to be involved in perfectly legal things because they were aware that the cops were in some way monitoring us. So if people know that their cell phones are being, monitored and bugged, they may be scared to exercise their rights and to speak up and to be that voice that we need right now. And that it has a chilling effect. It's a dangerous chilling effect. Educate yourself, educate those around you, practice a culture of security, just be safe. If you're doing things that you're worried people are gonna, find out about, you might want to turn your phone off if you're around a police vehicle, if you suspect some type of surveillance. Get involved in local politics, state politics. I don't really think there's any hope for a federal government fix here, but ultimately this is probably going to make it to the Supreme Court though, because since there's a patchwork and different states and cities are saying different things, more than likely a case regarding the StingRays will make it to the Supreme Court, and they'll have to decide, like, is this going to be warrantless, or do they need warrants for that? So I think that's what the long term is going to be. And now what our job, I believe, is to build coalitions to keep getting people of Houston educated and aware about these things, so we can start to make some change. Generally, governments and people in positions of power don't just give up that power and don't revert. They take what power they can until there's some type of resistance, whether from the people or from within the power structure itself. So it's up to us to say that we've had enough and that we're ready to, put an end to this growing police state, to the growing surveillance state. Check out the HoustonFreethinkers.com. Find us on Facebook. Come get involved.